Who runs South Africa? That's a question that's asked and answered in this month's edition of the Africa Report magazine. It's a big year for the country, with President Jacob Zuma due to stand down as leader of the ANC, and a leadership contest is coming up in December. There are also major economic issues, problems of wealth disparity, etc. Now, to discuss this, Nick Norbrook, the managing editor of the Africa Report, is back in RFI's studios. Thanks for coming back, Nick.
Thank you.
Now, this story is billed as an exclusive tour of the corridors of power in the twilight days of Zuma's time in power. Now, it takes us to a party in a mansion in a posh Cape Town suburb, attended by mining barons and politicians, currency traders, those types. They're casually chatting about how South Africa's political economy is on the verge of collapse. The politicians are out of control, apparently, and the institutions of the state have been criminalised. The decadence that's pictured here is like something out of The Great Gatsby. What sorts of things could I learn about South Africa if I was a fly on the wall at that party?
Well, I think the Great Gatsby reference is exactly it. There's a real sense of the Gilded Age in some parts of South Africa. In this particular suburb, driving down the street, you could see houses worth 20 million on one side, 40 million on the other. So this is a country with disparities of wealth which are just incredible and do recall the America of the 1920s or even earlier. And so, side by side in this party, you could see little groups of people, perhaps a mining mogul just back from the mining in Daba, next to a huddle of cabinet ministers. No one's quite sure whether they're going to keep their jobs. No one's quite sure what's going to happen in the tussle at the very top of the state. So it's quite a febrile atmosphere at the moment.
Just on that subject there of disparity of wealth, I think the figure mentioned in the article was something like 1% of South Africans own 42% of the country's private assets. Now, I think 2.5 decades ago, the ANC was elected on a platform of creating economic opportunities, spreading the wealth around. There's a leadership contest coming up. Do we have any more of a sense of how the ANC intends to go about achieving this aim?
Well, it certainly is, a hot issue in South Africa, and it's really driven a lot of the politics. We've seen the emergence of the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, who've done incredibly well in recent elections, and they've attacked the ANC from the left and saying, you've not transformed the economy. The wealth has remained in the hands often of white South Africans who got rich on the back of apartheid and who have remained rich today. And so their accusation of the ANC is, while you may have facilitated the emergence of a handful of black entrepreneurs, these entrepreneurs, and we talk about them in this cover story, they don't have the skills to reproduce wealth. So they were given under the Black Economic Empowerment Scheme, shareholder wealth. They own part of companies, but they're not themselves actively reproducing that wealth and making black communities richer. So led by Julius Malema, this radical attack on the left of the ANC, and from the right you have the much more technocratic, liberal-minded Democratic Alliance, who who say, well, we may not agree on how we should run the economy, and we do believe in, holding on to our capital, but we also think that government should be run in a certain way, and they've demonstrated in the cities they now run and the province that they run that there is an alternative, much more effective governance model than the current ANC. So it's kind of caught in this vice between attack from the left and attack from the right, which makes this current leadership battle all the more compelling.
So just tell us a little bit about the main figures floating around when it comes to South Africa's wealth. The piece sort of alludes to the fact it's more pertinent to ask the question who owns South Africa rather than who runs it.
Well, you have what is not very nicely referred to as the Stellenbosch mafia, which is white owners of very large companies like Johann Rupert or Christoffel Weiser, who was in the news recently over a mega merger between Bidvest and ShopRite, and that they sort of represent the old money, as it were. And then you have the emergence of these BEE entrepreneurs such as Patrice Motsepe in the mining sector, Saki Makazoma, and they are, if you like, the new capitalists, even though a lot of people don't believe they are managing to reproduce themselves. And then you have this third tranche of very rich individuals who are much more on the coattails of the politicians. So we have the very controversial Gupta family, who have inserted themselves into various deals, which are now currently being investigated by various people. So I guess those are the three main groups: the sort of tenderpreneur, stooge capital, if you like, on one side, the new black entrepreneurs, and then the old white capital.
Okay, now this brings me to the question of the institutions of South Africa, which is also looked at in this cover story. Things like judicial independence are obviously essential for a democracy. It seems that things are going in the right direction in South Africa, with Jacob Zuma being ordered to repay the money that he spent on his private residence, state funds that he spent on his residence, plus the reinstatement of more than 700 corruption charges that had been dropped against him way back in 2009. This all sounds very encouraging.
Well, it does seem that the area of South Africa which is given most cause for optimism has been the robustness of its courts. And you have the Chief Justice Maheng. I've probably massacred his name, and I apologize. But he has stayed very upright. A lot of the other judges have been under incredible pressure, but have still delivered solid verdicts. Okay,
now, Nick, I want to move you on to another article in this month's edition, and that is a look at the profile of the Nigerian vice president. Now, with the president, Muhammadu Buhari, on prolonged sick leave in London, his right-hand man, Yemi Osinbajo, has been busy trying to sort out the country's economic problems. What's he been up to?
Well, he has done various things. I guess the most noteworthy thing has been to fly down to the Niger Delta, meet with a whole range of stakeholders there, and really take a lot of the heat out of the situation. There'd been a lot of militant attacks, especially as this new administration had stopped the deals with Niger militants, which were essentially a protection racket whereby the Nigerian government gives them money and in return they don't blow up pipelines. They'd stopped those deals. I think they probably have started them up again because what we're seeing is the reflowing of these pipelines, which is absolutely essential to the Nigerian economy. Even though Buhari's administration wants to diversify, they're very keen on that. That's why they've stayed so firm on the foreign exchange issue. They still need, in this interim period, while the economy is turning around, desperately need the oil revenue in the state coffers so they could build the infrastructure, so they can do all the projects that they want to do. So going down to the Delta and getting that conversation started and getting the oil flowing again, I think has been incredibly useful. The other thing, he doesn't really have a big political base. So in a way, he's not seen as a threat politically by Buhari, which perhaps, and this is just my own interpretation, perhaps gives him more latitude and ability to get things done. He's not doing things to get a badge so he can use it to get elected.
He's not very ambitious, like perhaps some of his contemporaries. Let's just look at some of the differences between the president and the vice president. Two very different men, as you say. One's more of a technocrat. I think Osinbajo was a former lawyer, an academic, a part-time pastor as well, whereas Buhari was a military man. Okay, how different are they? What's their relationship like, given the fact that they are so different?
Well, I mean, I think they both have a certain rigor and a a certain desire to see morality play a stronger role in public life. However difficult that might be to imagine about Nigeria, there are various serious, upright people trying to change things, and I think they have that element within themselves. But as you say, they're mostly quite different people. And maybe that works quite well. Buhari does a lot of international trips. Obviously, he's on a prolonged medical trip at the moment, but before that, he was doing a lot of shuttle diplomacy around the world. And Osinbajo is acting kind of like a domestic president. He knows his way around a balance sheet. I think he worked he may have some kind of accountancy training in his background and worked as part of the team that turned the finances of Lagos State around. So he's got that side of him. Which I assume as a military man, Buhari didn't get to his accountancy studies. So I think they probably complement each other.